Hi everyone, this is my rabies presentation number 3. My name is Julia Moan. So the steps in the infection process are entry and attachment. So the virus enters usually through bites or a scratch. There has to be some like breakage of the skin barrier for the saliva from infected animals. For it to be able to enter, it's really rare. I couldn't really find any instances of where saliva got into something's mouth or your eye or something. It's generally from wounds. The spread, it just spreads locally in tissues and starts moving through your peripheral nervous system up into the central nervous system. It's replicating in muscle cells, and then when it finally gets to your CNS or the central nervous system, that's how it's able to evade your immune response as well. And then for it to be transmitted to another host, it's got to come out through saliva to spread even further. So it goes from your central nervous system down to your saliva in your face, and it has severe and fatal neurological symptoms that leads to encephalitis and die. So if untreated, it is 100% fatal. The transmission pathways are just wounds from bites or scratches, or again, not that I could really find many of these, but where saliva comes in contact with some mucous membrane, and again, it exits through saliva again. So here's a schematic of that. It's showing it going up from the peripheral nervous system, and from muscle cells into the CNS, going up to the brain, and then going back down to the salivary glands. The target site is those peripheral nerve cells from where the wound is and muscle tissues. And the microbial ligand is the rabies glycoprotein, and the receptor is nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. And so this schematic also shows that. The diagnostic techniques and guidelines. So there's observable or observation of the clinical symptoms. So there's distinct phases, and so people can tell if you usually have rabies. So the first phase, you get fever, headache, and malaise, but then it has really distinct symptoms such as hyperactivity, being afraid of water, aerophobia, of wind as well, and then hallucinations, hyperactivity, very specific symptoms to rabies, and which leads to paralysis and then a coma. And here's another thing from drugs.com, but you can see there's light sensitivity, muscle cramping, this fear of water, loss of appetite, and aggression, which is why you see a lot of animals that have rabies are attacking other animals or people. The laboratory testing is direct fluorescent antibody test, DFA. It is the gold standard for post-mortem diagnosis, so after you die or the animal is killed and taken in. So a lot of times if you get scratched or bitten by an animal such as a bat or a raccoon or something, they want to be able to get the animal, and then they'll do testing on it. They can also do reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction test, so that can detect rabies RNA in saliva or cerebral spinal fluid or from skin samples. There's also serological testing, and that detects antibodies usually used in humans during antemortem diagnosis. If you're having the PEP, the post-exposure prophylaxis is being used. And immunohistochemistry is used for tissue biopsy samples, usually post-mortem. So according to the National Notifiable Diseases Surveillance System, there are some case definitions. One is a suspected case, and that's clinically compatible illness with potential exposure. And then a probable case is where it's clinically compatible illness with a presumptive lab evidence. And then the confirmed case is where you have a definitive lab confirmation. How it spreads. So it spreads retrogradely by using the peripheral nerves to the central nervous system. I compared it to measles. It's transmissible via saliva. It's 100% fatal without treatment. Airborne with the how quickly it can reproduce. The reproduction number of measles is 12 to 18, so it's highly transmittable but treatable. and rabies is not. It is fatal, but its reproduction number is much lower. And I made this little graph with that. And then control measures for it is like vaccination for humans and animals, and this PEP, again, this post-exposure prophylaxis. So treatment and prevention, if you've got antimicrobials, there's no direct antiviral. The post-exposure, the PEP, there's vaccines, and rabies immune globulin, like RIG, is something that you can be given as well. That's where if you've been bitten a lot, like, and you have really high viral load. Vaccines stimulate the immune system to then help your body fight the disease, and the RIG provides immediate passive immunity. And the decision-making tree that this goes to, and you can see from this image, is exposure type and severity and the viral load of the wound. This is a picture from Wikipedia. It was hard to find like a lot of pictures for this, but long-term prognosis, and this is according to the CDC, if it's untreated, rabies is almost always fatal when symptoms appear. If you get treated within a timely fashion, like within 72 hours, survival is highly probable, though intensive medical follow-up is required a lot of times. And then recovery challenges is survivors of symptomatic rabies, like if you don't get PEP, and if you do survive, which like that's not a thing, but you would have some like intense neurological issues affecting the quality of your life long term. So there is a plan, and the World Health Organization has a lot of information about this actually, and they have a plan to break the chain of infection. So they have a lot of vaccination programs. So a widespread vaccination of domestic animals, which actually is something that's a big issue right now, is there's a lot of people not vaccinating humans, and it's leaking into the veterinarian world, and people aren't getting their animals vaccinated for rabies anymore either, and that's a huge problem. So there's public awareness campaigns, education on avoiding contact with wild animals, and how to keep your animals safe and vaccinated. If there are suspected rabid animals, you would want to quarantine and monitor them. PEP, immediate wound cleaning, administration of rabies immunoglobulin and rabies vaccine series. So get the PEP as quick as you can if you're exposed. Animal control is a huge issue. Stray animal management and wildlife control measures. And then there's laws for implementing animal vaccination laws and restrict imports, and that's a big deal. Even like living in St. Paul, I have a lot of neighbors that have dogs that are barking, and I've even, like, when you call animal control, they talk about coming out and enforcing. It's one of the measures they use to enforce the dog barking and things like that, is coming out and saying, do you have your dog registered? Does it have rabies vaccinations? But it also doesn't seem like it's enforced that well, actually, from my experience. There's public health measures. There's pre-exposure prophylaxis. So like if you are at high risk for being around animals that could have rabies, such as if like you were an animal handler like Jack Hanna, or if you're a veterinarian, or you're traveling to endemic regions, that you should get a rabies vaccination. They have rapid response teams. So if there is like a rabies outbreak, you can there's places globally that are mobilized to investigate potential outbreaks. And there's also surveillance systems around the world and in the United States to report and monitor rabies cases in both humans and in animals. Okay, so the global impact, according to the CDC, is approximately 70,000 human deaths happen worldwide, and 95% of those are in Asia and Africa. In the United States, we're doing a much better job of this, and the CDC states that between 1 and 3 human cases annually are due to, and we only have 1 to 3 human cases annually, and that's due to robust vaccination programs. But wildlife cases remain prevalent, especially in bats and raccoons and skunks. So the impact on everyday life is that it has this huge economic burden. Actually, the global economic impact of rabies is $8.6 billion. For human health, there's a lot of trauma associated with it, and you could have impacts to like the animals that you have in your life. Your livestock could get killed for this, and you could lose your pets due to rabies outbreaks as well. And those are my references. Thank you.